Hi everyone, welcome to Prysmian Sustainability Week. Today is a special day. We will talk about innovation for sustainability. How innovation can help sustainability. Telstra Infraco and the Prysmian are working collaboratively together to shape a new state-of intercapital fibre network in Australia. Today is a very special because we have very special guests with us. I would like to thank to Catherine, Executive of Fiber Assets at Telstra Infraco. Welcome, Catherine. And I would like to thank Millet, Principal of Asset Management at Infraco. Welcome, Millet. When we first shared our idea with Catherine and Millet about Sustainability Week and innovation context, despite their very busy agenda, they really wanted to be with us, as sustainability is key driver at Telstra Infraco. We will learn more from them. Today, we have also Prysmian team with us. Hama, our Oceania CEO, and Richard, our Oceania Telecom Commercial Director, they are with us. And of course, many thanks to all of you for your participation to this session. I am sure you will be quite interested in and feel inspired. Now, I would like to pass the word to James, our business manager for Telstra, to help us to moderate the session. Hi, James. We cannot wait anymore. Floor is yours.
Thanks, Erkan. For today's session, we'll run through a quick video documenting a recent factory visit by the CEO of Telstra Infraco, Brendan Riley, along with Catherine Jones and Milad Abdul-Noor, who join us today on the panel. This visit was part of a kickoff for an exciting project which we'll touch on today. After the video, we'll hand it over to the Prysmian and Telstra Infraco panel, where we'll have an open discussion around what sustainability means for each organisation and touch on some of the initiatives that each organisation is undertaking to move forward in this area. Following the discussion, we'll have a wrap-up from Erkan, our regional CEO, before moving ahead to the live voting of the material topics. We hope you find this session interesting and informative. So Erkan, you're the lucky first person that we wanted to ask the question to. So why this event and why innovation as a chapter for this talking point?
Thanks, James. As Prysmian Group, as you know, we are fueled by the development and achievement of our sustainable ambitions. Prysmian Group launched two initiatives that consolidate its present and future leadership on ESG matters. The first one is the climate change ambition towards a decarbonized economy, and the second one is social ambition to formalize a strong commitment through diversity, equality, and inclusion. We will invest more than 100 million euros in this initiative over the next 10 years. Financial investments alone will not be enough to achieve our goals. We need to shift from we do sustainability to we are sustainability. We can act more and more enabler for accelerating the reduction of the carbon cost in building optical fiber networks. Optical fiber networks are essential part of the modern society connecting people around the world. How these networks are built and what technology is used can shape the future. This is why we are here today. Collaborative work between the Telstra Infraco and Prysmian represents a strong move forward with intense work from both organizations.
Thanks, Serkan. Yeah, it certainly is important to be working on this, and it's certainly something that we've been focusing with Telstra on for some time. Catherine, innovation and sustainability, that's becoming increasingly important for Telstra. Are you able to comment around that?
Yeah, thanks, James. As Australia's leading telecommunications and technology company, and also a large user of energy, Telstra has a really important role to play in addressing climate change and many of the environmental challenges that we face. We recognise that climate change and environmental sustainability are defining the challenges of the decade, and we have a responsibility to act. We're committed to leading by example and using our scale and our voice to help drive better environmental outcomes. Telstra's environment strategy focuses on using technology to address environmental challenges while also helping our suppliers, customers and communities that we serve to do the same. So we have a number of action plans. One of those, a number of those would be maintaining carbon neutral in our operations, and which we did achieve in 2020 through one of Australia's largest ever carbon offset purchasing programs. We continue to invest in energy efficiency. We're looking at reducing our absolute emissions by at least 50% by 2030. We are looking at enabling 100% renewable energy generation equivalent to Telstra's own consumption by 2025. The use of storage and standby energy assets to address market constraints and reduce the risk of blackouts. We're also embedding climate change resilience actions into infrastructure planning, investment, operation, and also using our technology to help address environmental challenges to help our customers reduce their carbon emissions. So that's at a Telstra level. But at an Infraco level, we've got some specific actions in place. One is audit and optimise. We undertake energy audits over our 300 facilities each year to ensure assets are operating efficiently. We're looking at upgrading building services assets. We have an energy efficiency framework which helps ensure that new assets are planned, designed and built efficiently. And then finally, we're monitoring and data analytics. We're really developing and implementing capabilities to proactively monitor how our assets are performing.
Thanks, Catherine. It sounds like both from a very group level and from an Infraco perspective, there's quite a number of initiatives there, and certainly the 2030 target is a great one because I think it moves certainly forward that it's more advanced than the Australian government can commit to. So it's certainly a good target to aim for. Great. However, then, why this project and why is it so important to Prysmian?
Yeah, thanks, James. This is a nation-building project, and it's not only exciting new phase for Telstra, but I believe the country as a whole, and also for Prysmian Australia being Telstra's partner and sole supplier of fibre optic cables for almost a quarter of the century. Telstra's intercapital fibre network project requires $6.5 million investment in upgrading capacity in our local optical plant in Sydney at DY, which a group has committed to, but will also create local jobs, both directly in our plant and also indirectly in the broader ecosystem of our suppliers and service providers. So all around, it's a very exciting phase, new phase, both on Telstra's and ourselves as a strategic supplier of fibre optic cables. Yeah, very, very exciting. Thanks, James.
Thanks, Hammerman. Yeah, it's very exciting for us. Biled, how has the development helped shape sustainability for this project, specifically the Intercapital project that we're working on at the moment?
Great question, James. And let me answer it by addressing three key factors we focused on during this project. One is the architecture itself. The other is the technology itself. And the third is, of course, is what technology will enable for our customers and, of course, ourselves as well. So the fibre network architecture in the future and the fibre technology roadmap aligns well with our goals in terms of what Catherine walked through earlier. Look, the key call-outs in summary, the construction of an express and foundation network at the same time and on the same path will certainly minimise the environmental disturbance and enable significant efficiencies in mobilisation, transport and construction that will certainly reduce CO2 emissions and waste. Now, I'll touch on that a bit more in a sec. The small form factor cable that was custom designed jointly between Telstra Infraco and Prysmian for this new project does reduce the fossil-based polymers required for manufacture, but we believe more than half. It reduced weight and longer length, and we believe will halve the number of cable deliveries during construction. Also, the higher bandwidth enabled by this new fibre technology will contribute to the societal shift towards flexible working and reduce commuter and other travel as well. Just quickly, the dual cable diverse architecture translates to two fibre cables to be dual ploughed on the same fibre network route, and hence, as I mentioned, minimising the environmental disturbance of any new land compared to two cables being deployed separately. The full renewal of the Intercapital network will also address our foundation or life cycle plan, and by so doing, will again reduce mobilisation and construction projects. So in summary, this dual installation and architecture will certainly reduce and contribute significantly to our targets and carbon emission objectives.
Thanks, Fred. Yeah, I think by installing two cables at once, I guess it's a bit of a novel way of doing things as well. Certainly, as you mentioned, it does reduce the impact because you're going through there once anyway. Installing one cable, putting a second one in is negligible impact, and you're doubling the capacity there, which is a great initiative. And I think, as you mentioned, by reducing that cable design as well, whilst maintaining the cable performance, it, as you mentioned, I think is using half the amount of fossil fuel plastics that are inside that would normally be inside that size cable. And when rolling out in such a big scale like that, it really does add up to a lot of savings. So it's really great to hear that. Richard, how do you see the Australian telco market driving sustainability? Are you seeing similar initiatives run in other areas?
Yeah, I think the last few years we've seen a big focus on sustainability in the market. I think historically, our customers have always demanded, products and solutions that enable them to roll out a network cost effectively. But now rolling it out sustainably is just as important as well. So, yeah, big focus there. Some of the things we're seeing, as Miled pointed out, is cables that use a lot less plastics. That's a big one. Smaller cables that help lower greenhouse emissions. Sustainable practices in our manufacturing operations to lower greenhouse emissions as well, and also working on the whole of life program for the products. Recycling, trying to keep as much of that product out of landfill, if not all. So, most customer engagements we have now include sustainability. It's up the top of the list, fairly high.
And do you think it affects the way we develop cables as well?
Yeah, definitely. It's a competitive push from the market. I think sustainability is going to be a very important thing. If you're not a sustainable supplier in terms of your own practices, in terms of the products you can develop and supply, I think that's going to be an important part of being a competitive player in the market for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Erkan, what are your expectations for the future around sustainability? Where do you see us going?
Okay, expectations for the future. Yeah, all of us expect a greener, a better future. Yeah, and I believe that we are driver of our futures. We need to make sustainability a key consideration in the design and production of fiber cables, as Richard was pointing out. Sustainability is becoming more important in the market. Customers are giving a lot of importance on this category, and this is a clear direction and gives us a lot of homework to do using our technology and global know-how that the company has. Of course, if we are able to accelerate this will allow to shift towards a more environmental, ecological, and circular economy by reducing the carbon emissions that are released in the atmosphere, which Catherine was pointing out. Unfortunately, climate change becomes even more severe, and the fiber optic industry has a significant role to play. Listening and engaging with our partners is crucial for us because that is the only way that we can understand what we can do better, how we can improve ourselves, learning from the market, going back to our technology, our production facilities, and with the team all together drive innovation. That is our DNA going future. Of course, by doing that collectively and together, we can create and deploy solutions which could be a better tomorrow for everyone.
Do you find that the customers are requesting this more sustainability as a requirement? I feel like as a business locally, we're talking about it more certainly than what we did some years ago. Do you see that in the market as well?
I believe it is a kind of interaction, James. So definitely we are all trying to take important steps through sustainability. So it is a journey. So tomorrow morning we cannot really create a very much a sustainable future by ourselves. So that brings an interaction, and our customers, better to say partners, knowing better the requirements in the market, their knowledge is essential for us. And that kind of interaction is triggering a lot of activities that we can perform together to design, to see what can be done better in the future. And I believe in the future, this will become maybe more regulated, but we have to be, as Telstra Infraco, as Catherine was highlighting, a lot of context, right, is a busy agenda. And regulations maybe are not there today fully, but we have to be the leader of these initiatives. So we have to move faster and the first ones in the market to start to change and trigger the future, greener and more environmental for all of us.
Yeah. It's certainly a lot more prevalent today. Catherine, how important is for Telstra that suppliers are taking sustainability seriously? I know we're hearing about it more, but is that something that Telstra is speaking on their suppliers with as well?
Yeah, absolutely, James. So sustainability, performance and commitment profile is increasingly influencing our vendor selection decisions. So working with our vendors is critically important to achieving our sustainability goals. We've definitely identified that. In December, we broadened our commitment to reducing our absolute emissions by 50% to include Scope 3 emissions. And Scope 3, sorry, the Labrador, I knew he'd start barking when I started talking, which are, so those Scope 3 emissions that we talk about are those emissions that we're indirectly responsible for. So such as our supply chain and the use of products, amongst other things. So approximately 40% of our emissions are attributed to our suppliers. So we're working with them to identify, prioritise and also execute emissions reductions opportunities to help achieve this target. We're doing this through, one, providing training and support to vendors on how to reduce their carbon footprint. We're also looking at including our climate commitments in commercial agreements, and we're also considering emissions reduction opportunities in the delivery of their goods and services to us. We've also got a supplier, Telstra Supplier Code of Conduct, which also sets out minimum social and environmental standards that we expect of our suppliers. And in particular, that covers off environmental laws, permits and reporting, product content, pollution prevention and resource efficiency, and climate change and energy consumptions. And the CDP, which was formerly known as the Carbon Disclosure Project, is an example of how Telstra works with its suppliers to measure and manage those environmental impacts. So CDP is a not-for-profit global disclosure system. Telstra is Australia's first supply chain program member, and in 2022 we were recognised as a CDP supplier engagement leader. And this partnership enables us to deliver training, tools and support to our top 113 suppliers who cover nearly 78% of our spend, and that's to help them disclose their environmental impacts to Telstra via the CDP. And it also enables Telstra to holistically manage carbon emissions of its strategic supply chain, so including vendors who will be helping to build new projects, including WOMRA. So I think by me listing all of that out, James, I think you get the sense that, yeah, absolutely, we see it as a really important commitment from our vendors.
Absolutely.
But equally, we're there to help as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Catherine. I think by drawing out that information, from the suppliers, it makes it easy to measure, and the impacts of the CO2 emissions. I know that Prysmian is looking at measuring the CO2 impacts of their cable designs, and just by having those numbers there, it helps to measure one design against another, and it just brings the sustainability factor, I guess, more to the front of the mind. So it's a really, really powerful tool to extract that information to allow for reporting. Van, what are some of the initiatives in Prysmian Oceania do we have to help drive sustainability?
Thanks, James. Good question. Obviously, we are leveraging the group strategy and resources to drive sustainability chapter locally as well. Prysmian Oceania, we've embarked on a number of key initiatives locally. Things like, simple things like minimizing waste, minimizing our energy consumption, to also increasing our in-house recycling of materials, like PVC, for example, in our energy cable plant. At the moment, we are trialing recycling of using recycled PVC. As of last month, we managed to achieve 25% of our PVC material consumption as a recycled PVC that was recycled in-house by ourselves. Whereas historically in the past, we've sent any waste PVC compound to other companies that have recycled. We are now starting to do the same, recycling it in-house. Yeah. The other big one is recycling of drums. On the Intercapital project, which we've been working with Catherine and Millet's team, where the empty drums are basically, we are working towards recycling those, reusing those, to ensure that we get a few turns out of the drums before they finish up in scrap, for example, or in terms of just trying to get more sustainability, just even purely and simply out of reusing the empty drums. And the other exciting one that we are working on is in partnership with Monash University and our local recycling company, where we're trying to come up with basically a prototype plant to be able to recycle cables and minimize cables finishing up as waste in landfill. Right now, that project is still a while away, still undergoing a lot of laboratory studies, prototype studies, and that's out of it. But it's something that we are working closely with the local university and our recycling company on that front as well. So yeah, James, a number of things we are pushing with support, as I said, and as Urkan mentioned, leveraging our group's resources on the sustainability front, applying a number of these initiatives that we're also learning from some of the other countries, some of the other regions, what they're doing, and taking on some of those ideas and applying them locally. Yeah.
Thanks. The fibre recycling sounds pretty interesting. I know in the copper cable industry, recycling is quite common, where particularly the copper material is broken down and separated from the plastic material. But this is something novel for optical fibre, isn't it?
That's right, James. It's still early days. Still, as I mentioned, still undergoing lab studies with Monash University. But there's some promising results, some promising signs out there, and Prysmian is very excited to take this chapter further.
Yeah. And the reuse of drums as well is quite important. Obviously, the drums, as they go out into the field, they get worn out through a bit of wear and tear. But by returning them back to the factory, reusing them as much as possible, it means that I guess we're using less timber or metal, steel, by reusing those drums. So how does that manage? We collect the drums, bring them back to the factory, and just basically put them out.
Exactly, James. Exactly right. So we collect the drums from site, bring them back to the factory, refurbish them, do any repairs as required, and then reuse them on the production lines, and basically supply a lot of cables, and the cycle keeps going rather than buying brand new timber drums and all that. This is something that we are really pushing very hard.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess getting those drums from the field has its challenges, but it sounds worth it. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Exactly.
Richard, can you describe any initiatives applied to the specific intercapital project that we've been working on with Telstra Infraco, focusing on sustainability, of course?
Yeah. I think Hammer mentioned the recycled drums, which is a big one, but probably the other big one is the actual cable. I've got a couple of pieces of the cable here, but this is the cable jointly developed with Telstra Infraco, much smaller than the traditional design, being basically half the size. It's got half the amount of plastic in it, which, as we said, dramatically cuts down greenhouse emissions. But being half the size means we put double the amount on a drum. Put double the amount on a drum, we put double the amount on a truck. And this cable's got to go right throughout Australia. So, the amount of fuel we're going to save is going to be immense. So some very good savings with this new cable.
That's great. So you said you could basically double the cable length on the drums now. That's a big saving.
Yeah, I think it also means you can install more cable in one hit. Yeah. You cut down on your connectivity, which again is more and more plastic. So I think that the savings just sort of go on and on. As Miled said, the fibre in these cables, allows people in remote communities to work from home, and just those sort of things, saving people from having to drive to work every day. We haven't got down and counted how much emissions we're saving, but I think initiatives like this are going to be pretty large.
Yeah, and I think by reducing, particularly with this project in mind, because it's an intercapital project, they're going to be going to some far and remote places. So there's a lot of transport, isn't there, as part of this project? So it would seem to me that by cutting back any of those, the weights of the plastic, increasing the length of cable would really have a great roll-on effect.
Yeah, for sure.
Are there any other initiatives? I think there was a fibre ageing study as well that Prysmian is looking at as well.
Yeah, that's one other thing we're working on. One is to get sustainable cables in the network. The other thing is to make sure they last as long as possible. So there's a study going on at the moment to work out how we can actually make cables and fibre last longer in the ground. If we can get an extra 20, 30, 40% out of the life of our network, it just means we're not out there delivering new cables and ploughing in new cables and using more plastic. So a longer life network's important as well.
Absolutely, yeah. The longer you keep it in the ground, the less you need to build, which is great. Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone. Does anyone have any questions I would like to ask from anyone else around the sustainability topic between the organisations?
Catherine, do you have enough more points to add for Prysmian that we can work more on the topics, your experience with the Prysmian maybe, before we wrap up the conclusions?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the experience we've had with Prysmian has been a true partnership. We have been, and Miled can talk a little bit more about this, but I've been in the role for 2 years, and Prysmian have just been fantastic in terms of that thought leadership, and also bringing that global expertise to our program. I just want to thank the team, because where we've got to in a short space of time has been truly remarkable. And I know you are very, very conscious of sustainability as well, and are equally as passionate as Telstra is, which is terrific. So thank you.
Thank you to you. It's a pleasure.
All right, guys. Well, maybe we'll wrap up the questions. Erkan, did you have any message for the group?
Sure, James. Let me try to wrap up our interesting discussion today, this session. I think there has been a lot of learnings with inspirations. Unfortunately, time passed very quickly. I couldn't realize that it was so quick. So just to recap, a lot of topics here, I cannot touch everything, but I think from Telstra Infraco, Catherine has really highlighted a lot of topics that are key for our future. She was talking about the energy efficiencies. I'm looking my notes. Lowering the emissions, 100% renewable energy impacts, even storaging of the energy, reduction of the blackouts, and using, of course, fiber technology to help the community connect. Because as you know, fiber has in one side lower carbon emission, as we discussed, but on the other side, I think social impact is also important, because in the social chapter of the sustainability, there is the inclusiveness. And I think fiber is just great for that area. And of course, Catherine was also highlighting developing capabilities proactively. I like really that word, because that was also what I was trying to touch. Proactivity is really important. We cannot be followers. We have to be proactive, triggering each other for sustainability journey. Obviously, then Ama touched the long partnership with Telstra Infraco is the quarter of century. I hope it will go to a century. So it was great to work together. And also the project importance for Australia, not only the cable market, but also developing the continent as in the sustainability we try to contribute to our communities. Then Milad really express highly what technology is used is important, and long, intense works is able to conclude a better performing cable, which can be even smaller in dimension but better in the performance. So I take my note like doing more with less, right? So that was what we were talking about. Is great, exciting, and also the technology or the fiber that was pointing out is very important. Impact on the sustainability he highlighted once more, and of course fiber contributing a lot significantly to the carbon emissions and the performance of the cable. Richard has given us a bit more color. Sustainability in the market is evolving, is becoming very much an important part. And he touched the recycling chapter from the production perspective, how we can do it more and more. This was the first part, right? In the second part, Catherine has gone into a lot of details, which I took my notes and I will really look them afterwards, also after this session, because how important the influencing the vendor selection is key, because sustainability, different from the other chapters, is imposing a wider holistic approach, which Catherine was saying that in Telstra Infraco, we are moving to a holistically management of our supply chains. So the vendor selection is important, and also it is fit with the scope 3, which is the important part of the scientific ambitions that the companies are having. Of course, the emissions that we are, she said, indirectly responsible. I liked also that one quite a lot, because one way or the other, we are responsible for the consequences of our business, and indirect responsibility means that we can still do a lot of activity there. And here I have taken my note as a supplier's code of conduct, which means really a good organization of the supplier chapter, right? Training, tools, carbon disclosure projects, so a lot of activities that as Prysmian we are also working in these chapters. Telstra Infraco today has given us more inspiration to proceed with this great initiative. Then Hama talk about the group strategies, local initiatives, minimizing waste, increasing recycle, and James, you were also triggering the fiber recycle, also challenging a bit the Hama. But we are working on these areas. Even technologically today, maybe is not that straightforward. But as a group, we will work on this, and we are taking some steps, including drums. Everything that we are touching, they are all belonging to all these sustainability chapters. Then Richard also mentioned once more the jointly developed design and how can cable last even more underground. And all these things were a great wrap up for us today. So our question in the beginning, if you remember, I was saying, how does innovation help sustainability? We tried to answer that question. I think today both companies, Telstra Infraco and Prysmian, have demonstrated their expertise through a sustainable and innovative high-performing products. Innovation remains the key pillar to drive sustainability. So I would like to thank once more to our special guests and of course our experts. So thanks Telstra Infraco, thanks Catherine, thanks Milad, thanks Prysmian, thanks Hama, thanks Richard, and thanks all of you who have participated in this session, and see you next time in different sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Erkan. That wraps up the roundtable discussion. We now move to the live voting. So next in the agenda, we have the live voting of material topics for the updated Prysmian Group material matrix. The matrix allows for the determination of the material topics essential to be addressed and analysed in Prysmian Group Sustainability Strategy and Reporting. This matrix will combine the point of view of both internal and external stakeholders. The aim of this live voting is to gather your perspectives. Thus, we kindly ask you to take part in this live voting. You are asked, based on the knowledge about Prysmian Group and its value chain, what is the impact on the economy, environment, and people, including impacts on human rights? We ask that you answer these questions on a scale from 1 to 5, 1 being not impactful at all and 5 being very impactful. The results will be disclosed in the materiality matrix, which is published on the Prysmian Group Sustainability Report every year and will not be displayed at the end of live voting. Thank you very much.